What's up, everybody? So today I'll be continuing an identity series that I'm doing, with today's episode being about how we may look for our identity in relationships. For a long time in my life, I feel like I needed to be in a relationship. I was never fully satisfied with myself. I didn't feel secure with my identity being alone. So I kept seeking relationships to fill a void in my identity. I really didn't know who I was, and I believed a woman would make me feel complete. As humans, we all experience loneliness. That's normal. We were created to be relational, with God first and with others. But instead of facing that loneliness, I avoided it. I didn't want to be seen as the one who didn't have a girl. My ego was tied to it. So a lot of my early relationships weren't built on true intention. They were built on insecurity. I was trying to find identity through someone else. Trying to find identity in another person is one of the most common things that us as people do. A lot of times, we don't realize that we don't know who we are. So we cover that up by attaching ourselves to someone else. For example, a woman from a fatherless home might say, "I never had a man to affirm me, so I look for that in relationships." A man who didn't receive love growing up might say, "I'm going to get validation from as many women as I can." At the root of both, it's the same thing. I just want to feel loved. But instead of healing, we start to use people to fill that space. Here's a real question we had to ask ourselves. If I'm single, am I truly okay with myself alone? Because I had to face that. There were times when my self-esteem dropped when I didn't have someone. And when you're in that space, you'll settle for just about anything just to feel adequate. You may start thinking, "I just need somebody. I feel empty alone. Maybe a relationship will fix this. Maybe this person will complete me." But let's keep it 100 though, especially for men. If the guys is clowning you, saying you don't get no girls, at that point, you may feel as though your ego is on the line. So your identity start to get shaped by how many females you can pull, the attention you get, comparisons within your circle. And you may start thinking, both males and females alike, if I'm getting attention, I must be valuable. That was me. I was in that space, building my identity off attention just to feed my ego. So then we enter relationships with unrealistic expectations. We expect that person to fix us, complete us, to fill every void that we have, to keep us stable. That's codependency. Spiritually, codependency turns people into idols in our lives. Now your identity, your confidence, your peace is tied to another person. That's dangerous because you're asking for a flawed human to do what only God can do. This is why so many relationships become so toxic, because two people who don't know themselves are trying to find themselves in each other. It's not fair to put that burden on someone else, because they're trying to figure themselves out too. And early on, I had to learn that the hard way. I expected women to validate me, affirm me, complete me. And when they didn't, I felt frustrated, lost, and even more empty. We all know people who we may see that's been in relationships for 20 to 30 years. But behind the scenes is chaos. And they become so attached that they feel like, "I just can't live without this person." And the attachment isn't healthy. And it's because their identity is tied to that relationship. And leaving it feels like they're losing themselves. But staying in that type of relationship so long, this makes you think, man, how far would I be if I broke free from this comfort? When I was in this space, I became too dependent on a person for what only God can do. As time goes on, the flaws and imperfections rule, and our expectancy leads to our downfall and disappointment. Then the insecurities follow, because we now start to see that the relationship isn't fulfilling our longing. Then anger begins because we want to break away from the person, but we're too codependent at that point. You see, codependency actually makes you lose yourself, because relationships change, people change, and when that relationship ends, your sense of self collapsed with it, because that was your source. But the truth is, that source was never stable to begin with. Now we all know these people, and I was in this space before. They jump from relationship to relationship. They break up and they immediately get with someone else, because being with someone feels so familiar, it feels safe. But really, they may not know who they are alone. So they keep repeating the cycle. Sometimes it may be out of spite, out of comparison, trying to prove something to the next. And now your identity is being built on competition instead of the truth. Now, for those of us who believe, our fear of being alone cannot be greater than our calling. I had to check myself recently because I started to feel that loneliness again. And those old thoughts tried to creep in, tempting me to go back to what was familiar. But I had to realize that my desire for a relationship cannot cause me to yield to my flesh and step out of alignment with Christ. This season of waiting is not punishment, it's preparation. Overall, I realized this in my own life. After my last relationship years ago, I came to face with the truth. In some aspects, my identity has been placed in someone else. But when I truly encountered Christ, everything changed. That deep longing that I carried for years, it was finally fulfilled, not by a person, but by Him. For the first time in my life, I didn't need someone to complete me. I finally felt secure in who I was and whose I was. If you're listening and you haven't come to Christ yet, that emptiness that you feel is real, and that longing is real, but it's not meant to be filled by another person. You have a Creator that loves you more than you love yourself, more than any relationship ever could. And in Him, your true identity is waiting to be found. For the believer, this is our reminder. We have to remove the idol. People were never meant to carry the weight of our identity. Our identity is rooted in Christ alone. He died so we could be made whole in Him. We are relational by design, but it starts with a relationship with Him. Because the love and the identity we keep searching for in others can only truly be found in Christ. Man, I thank y'all for tuning in. And I just pray that this message just may help someone out there that's in this space that I was in for a long time in my life. Thank y'all. Love and God bless.